Thank you for joining Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country, presented by Citi. I hope everyone had a safe and healthy and happy holiday weekend. I'm Sam Kimball from New York Wine Events. We're thrilled to be here today. We have a really cool visit and virtual day trip to wine country. We are going out west again to the beautiful Sonoma County area in California. We will be visiting one of the truly notable locations and producers in that area. We've had some great visits out to Sonoma over the last few weeks virtually, and we're thrilled to be back today with Wilson Artisan Wines. We're heading to Wilson. Wilson has 11 different winery brands under its umbrella. Their calling card is, if there's a grape that grows in any part of Sonoma County, the Wilson team probably makes an award-winning wine from it. All of their wines are small lot production, usually under 200 to 300 cases total. So these are truly handmade artisan wines. To learn all about Wilson Artisan Wines, you can visit wilsonartisanwines.com. And if you've seen Day Trip to Wine Country before, you know that I love a deal spoiler alert. The spoiler alert today is that Wilson has an incredible deal on a mixed case. You'll learn more about it as we do the tasting. 35% off the price and free shipping to anywhere that Wilson ships in the continental US. And by the way, if you want to check out that deal, even while we're live and doing the show, you can go to wilsonartisanwines.com/New York. If you have questions during the session and the tasting, please put them in the Q&A or the chat module in Zoom, and we will tackle them. Also, let us know where you're from in the chat. If you're beaming in from Atlanta, or if you're beaming in from Boston. Last but not least, let's get into the real heart of this. It's my pleasure today to host two, not one, but two winemakers, award-winning winemakers from Wilson Artisan Wines. The first is Diane Wilson. Diane has made huge strides and inroads in the wine industry. She's won many awards over the years. Most recently, she took the sweepstakes at the 2020 San Francisco Chronicle Wine Competition for her 2016 Crazy Creek Cabernet Sauvignon. And we also have Chris Barrett, who works alongside Diane. He's the winemaker for the Pezzi King and St. Anne's Crossing wineries that are part of the Wilson Artisan Wines group. Chris has won 4 sweepstakes awards, including most recently winning the sweepstakes at the 2019 San Francisco Chronicle Wine Competition for his ranch Zinfandel. And Zinfandel is the word of the day because we're going to be tasting 4 amazing Zinfandels made by these two winemakers. Welcome, Diane and Chris. It's a great honor having you both on the show today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. We're looking forward to this.
Yep, thank you very much.
I love your background. I have a virtual background of Sonoma County. You've got the real thing there. So I have to ask you, Diane, tell us a little bit more kind of from the top about Wilson Artisan Wines. What's the short history? Our audience here on the East Coast doesn't know it as well. Give us a little bit of a backgrounder.
Sure. We started with being growers at first, and like a lot of growers went, you know, we can try making some wine. So we started with 5 tons of grapes, and we bought a little winery, and that was back in 1994 was our first vintage. We bought the winery in 92 and started out just being cab and a little bit of Zin. And then over the next 5 years, started planting more Zinfandel, and started becoming known for our small lots of single vineyard designated Zinfandel. And we had started planting, my husband, who was kind of the visionary of all this, started planting more grapes. And as we started needing more places to crush the grapes, not sure if we could sell them all, we bought Mazzacco Winery and Pezzi King and Matrix and Soda Rock, and have just slowly added these small little wineries onto our collection of wineries. So Wilson was a mothership, and we've sort of just added on from there.
And I came with the property. So I've been with Pezzi King since 2007. Took over right before the '08 harvest. And in 2012 is when the Wilsons acquired Pezzi King and kept me on, and I couldn't be more thankful. So
He was one of the selling points of Pezzi King, that we got Chris to come along.
That's good. That's important. So, by the way, Chris, I have to ask you, you've been obviously with Pezzi King for a long time. How did you get into the wine business originally?
So it wasn't really what I sought out to do. I was always around the wine industry. I grew up in Santa Rosa, but I was splashing around in creeks, collecting bugs, doing stream assessments up in Chico State. And it happened to be that my minor in chemistry was the first job to get me home in a wine lab. And from there, it just kind of snowballed, one foot in front of the other, moved to a bigger custom crush place out in Grayton. And then I came here in 2007 and have been here since.
That's so interesting. Last week we had Eric Bauer on from Ridge, Montebello, and he was a chemistry major at UC Davis, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't.
I was a biochem major also. I don't have a degree in winemaking.
You know, you have to be really smart to be a winemaker. You need to be a biochemist. That's major. Like most of us who went to liberal arts college couldn't cut it for a week, let alone a career. So that's a revelation.
Organic chemistry, I think, that ruins you on being a science major if you don't make it through organic chemistry.
Yeah, organic chem was like, that was sort of like that separated the men from the boys, and
Yeah.
you know, that was it. So. All right, so a little bit about when you got started with this amazing collection of vineyards and winery brands. You know, you talked about starting with Cabernet and Zin, Diane, but was there a philosophy and approach in mind as you kind of gathered momentum and were bringing other wineries and labels into the fold?
We did. We started with, when we first planted our first vineyard after researching, which was, I think, 1989 was our first vineyard that we planted. You know, the old saying, cab is king. That is what Ken planted, our first 25 acres. And from there, we started, you know, feeling out and buying different properties and planting things that were appropriate to the soil and the climate. After we bought Matrix Winery, which is over in Russian River Valley, we started really focusing on Pinot Noir and some Chardonnay with a little bit of Zin and Petit Syrah thrown in. But, you know, so each area, Anderson Valley, we've really focused on Pinot. Dry Creek Valley, pretty much Zinfandel, with some other odds and ends thrown in there as blenders and kind of fun little varietals.
So, go ahead.
Alexander Valley, obviously cab driven with the Delormier and Soda Rock. So we've kind of tried to focus on where that brand is and what grows best in that area.
So all told, I mean, which are the varietals that you guys, you know, now it's a real portfolio of different wines and selections. How many different varietals, grape varietals, are you focused on and producing?
Well, I think that is tough.
I know, maybe we could have had that. It's, I think we make over 100 different Zinfandels between the wineries,
Wow.
and then probably make 20 different cabs.
Yeah.
And then we make a
20 petites, maybe.
20 petites. We throw in, there's a little bit of Syrah. There's some, what else?
I do a Malbec.
I do a Malbec.
Yeah. I did a Mourvedre last year. So it's
Cab Franc, some Meritages.
yeah.
Some, whatever, you know, some of the wineries have Merlot. I know Merlot kind of got a bad rap there for a while, but it seems like sales are coming back. People are beginning to appreciate Merlot again after the movie sort of.
You know, you would know better than I, but I've been told variously that the movie Sideways knocked the average price in the retail market of Merlot down by 25% after the movie came out.
Easily.
Yeah.
In fact, I stopped making it at Wilson after that. It wasn't a huge part of our portfolio, but when, you know, we just could hardly give it away for a couple of years there.
I mean, it's the power of Hollywood, and the fact of the matter is, it was an independent film. It wasn't even a major studio release, and it just decimated the Merlot market. And one of the things that we try to do in our work here at New York Wine Events is encourage our audience to try as many different grapes as possible. And you know, if you're talking, Chris, about, you know, Mourvedre, or if you're talking about even Petit Syrah, like, you know, get out of your comfort zone of Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon and taste some Zinfandel. And frankly, so we've had to, in part, it's been a while, it's been a good 15 years since that movie came out, but the bottom line is we've had to sort of church people and say, hey, you know, there's some really great Merlot. In fact, on the East Coast, the North Fork of Long Island has some great Merlot. And yet it's hard to convince people because they've heard that Pinot Noir is king and Merlot is rubbish. So it's one of those things, but I did want our audience to hear how many different grapes you work with, because there's such a rainbow of varietals out there in the world. So you guys are both winemakers. What do you do? What do you do every day? What does a winemaker do?
Well, right now the season is bottling. So for me particularly, I can only do so much in one bottling. So it's in and out. I'll bottle now until harvest comes. Almost every 2 to 3 weeks, I'll do maybe 8,000 cases, which might be anywhere from 5 to 8 different wines or something, just depending on what it is. But yeah, right now it's all about bottling. The vineyards are in growth, starting to go through bloom right now. So that's kind of exciting because then you actually see what you have on the vine. You can kind of start predicting yields and stuff like that. But it's certainly bottling season right now. It would be events, but under the circumstances, we get to do more things like this, which is wonderful. But yeah, it's definitely event time, and for the winery itself, bottling.
Yeah, same with me. This time of year is putting together blends, tasting through all the barrels. Just trying to get everything in before harvest so we can free up barrels for the next round of grapes coming in. Then starting in about, end of August, September, as we sort of finish up all the bottling, it's starting to trek through all the vineyards, look at them, evaluate, starting to get a little feel for what our timing is on.
Yeah, it's when you start putting a lot of miles on your vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I start feeling like I become diabetic after tasting so many grapes.
Yeah, you eat hundreds of thousands of grapes during harvest.
I hate to think what my blood sugar level is.
So now, speaking of miles, what are we looking at in the background behind you guys? A beautiful vista there.
That is Geyser Peak, and we're looking down over the Dry Creek Valley, over the neck. You can see the the high hill in the very back, that's Geyser Peak. And over the ridge is Alexander Valley. So right down below us with the grapes that you can see, I don't know how focused that is, are the grapes of Dry Creek Valley, which Dry Creek Valley is a fairly small valley as appellations go.
And one of the things reason I asked that question is not everyone realizes that within Sonoma County, there are multiple delineated wine growing regions. It's not one place. People think of Napa. If you're on the East Coast, you think of Napa Valley or Napa County as one thing, but it's Sonoma, same thing, and it's not. It's multiple places where they actually have official grape growing AVAs.
Yeah, I think it's the most of any of the counties has more AVAs. I'm not sure what the number is. I want to say 20. I want to say 28, if that's, and it's such a diverse county, from high mountains above the fog to out along the Russian River where, the fog comes in every night and really cools things down. Well, Napa's a little bit more of a, there are microclimates in there, but ours are just here in Sonoma County. Just there, there's such a huge variation here. So it makes sense to say that this wine's going to have a different characteristic coming from this climate and soil.
And that's a lot of the fun of it too, is tasting Zinfandels from Dry Creek as opposed to Russian River Valley, Sonoma Valley, Alexander, so they all have these characteristics that are different. Hillsides to valley floors. So that's really the diversity of it, and that's what makes it a lot of fun.
Let me ask you a question for our audience. Some of them may know this, some of them may not. What does AVA stand for?
Agricultural Vitical Area.
Yes. Yes.
Did you get
which is usually known as appellation,
right.
So it's the Dry Creek. AVA is the official term, but most people will say it's the Dry Creek appellation, it's Russian River Valley, and I think oftentimes even drop the appellation off there.
Right, well, it's the official wine industry designation for a specific wine growing area that's officially recognized as that being its own area. And that's my point is, and how many AVAs, when you talk Dry Creek, Russian River Valley, Alexander Valley, how many AVAs are in Sonoma County?
I think there's about 28, right?
28.
22.
22?
I mean, 20 something. I mean, on the East Coast, if you go to a major wine growing,
got the number 17.
We had
go to a major wine growing region like the Finger Lakes or the North Fork of Long Island, there's one. So I think it's really notable. Like the land changes so much, and you have these different places, and it's just important because the wine comes from grapes, grapes come from the land, and with such a diverse landscape, that really makes a difference in how the wines are. So, and we're tasting wines from Russian River, Sonoma Valley, Dry Creek, and Rock Pile is what AVA?
Rock Pile's its own AVA as well.
Its own AVA. Got it. Okay, cool.
So it's one of the newest of the AVAs, and it used to just be Dry Creek Valley.
Sorry.
It's one of the newer AVAs. They carved out part of Dry Creek Valley and created its own. It's almost a sub-appellation because the wines that were coming from there were so distinct and different from Dry Creek Valley that Jack Florence actually really pioneered getting that as its own appellation. And they really are distinct wines, and if anyone is ever having a chance to try and do a side-by-side appellation tasting,
Rock Pile sticks out to me.
Rock Pile really does stick out.
So let's get started with wines momentarily. We're going to be tasting 4 Zinfandels from 4 different AVAs or wine growing regions within the Sonoma County area. They're all Zinfandel. What, in
Yes.
your opinion, and Diane go first and then Chris, what makes a great Zinfandel?
Sorry,
What
was
makes
just
a great
saying-
Zinfandel?
Pardon?
So we're tasting 4 Zinfandels. The question is, what makes a great Zinfandel?
To me, is the fruit forwardness of Zin. Zin has a lot of complexities, but what really drives it is that its fruitiness. And so what I look for in a Zin is that first on the nose, that you're not getting greener vegetal, you're getting the bright fruit. It usually has some nice acidity and not real high on tannins. It's a little bit of a softer, more approachable wine than, let's say, Cabernet or Petit Syrah.
Yeah, and I think what's fun about it is it can easily be a standalone wine, but it pairs really well with foods. As far as making Zinfandel, I think you could go in 2 directions. You can make it like a Bordeaux or like a Burgundy. You could be gentle, minimalistic with it, or you can be aggressive with it, extended maceration. There's just a lot of different angles you could take it, and that brings out these different characteristics.
And picking, Zinfandel is one of those that you have a big variety. There's a wide range of where you can pick of what your flavor profile is. So there's a lot that a winemaker can put his own, put his own signature into it, more so than Cab. Cab is a little more what you get from the vineyard and what you've trained and how you've done and selectively picked. But a Cab, you can't manipulate it quite as much with a Zinfandel. If you pick it early, you can get a lighter, more, like you said, a little more of a Bordeaux, a little leaner style. If you let it ripen, and Zinfandel really wants to ripens really easily, you can tend to get the bigger, jammier style, real super fruit forward Zins.
Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, I think Zinfandel is the hardest grape to grow, and I think it's the hardest wine to make, because growing it ripens so unevenly. So you could have a green cluster next to a half raisin cluster. So you have to do multiple passes in the vineyard to drop those green flavors. And so in making wine, you want to avoid any of the pink and green berries because they're of the bitterness. And so you push a little bit. And so when you put that into a tank, you may have 1% raisin or so, or some shrivel. And so you think you're picking it at, say, 25 bricks, it may raise to 27 in tank. And so you have to be able to control all that. And so it's got kind of a mind of its own as far as on the vine and in the tank.
Got it.
Yeah.
So before we start tasting, one quick question from Chantel. She asks, does the current climate alter the product from what you started with in 1992 until now in 2020?
Climate meaning the temperature, like things warming up?
Yeah, I think she's talking about climate change.
It's definitely changing we are getting, it seems, much more earlier harvest. Things are coming in riper. We're having some higher alcohols just in order to get some hang time, in order to get the ripe fruit flavors. So, and I know there's always the big controversy on high alcohol wines, and I don't think any winemaker wants high alcohol wines. It's just a byproduct of trying to get your fruit to ripen properly.
Get those flavors out. And it's just because you really, I mean, if you pick by the numbers, you may not get the flavors. And so if you aim for a certain brick level, the flavors might not have developed yet until you get to the little bit of higher bricks. And so then it really starts to come out. So yeah, it is. It's just a product of watching the weather, seeing if there's going to be a heat spike or something else, or rains even. So it's always unpredictable, but we really are always watching the weather, especially during harvest time.
Yes, and this time while we're having bloom, we can get some May, early June rains. Not super common, but it seems like over the past couple of years we're getting more rain in May, and it can affect the set of the grapes. So last year we had some really small crops in a couple vineyards because they were blooming, and we had a couple inches of rain. So it definitely, climate is changing here. In fact, we're setting some heat records here right now.
I know. You think instead of Zinfandels, we'd be tasting Sauv Blancs and Rosés on ice, but you know.
Yeah, tell everybody what's the temperature there where you are at the winery?
It's 98.
98 degrees. Time for the rosé. Time for the rosé, Chris.
That's right.
All right, so we're going to start with wine number one is the Matrix Winery 2017 Zinfandel, Russian River Valley, Estate Zinfandel. I have it up on my screen here to my right. And Diane, I think this is one that you make, and I can't wait to hear you talk about the tasting notes and the kind of foods that would go well with.
So this is a somewhat middle elevation. It's not a real high elevation wine. It comes from the Russian River Valley, which is a little bit of a cooler growing climate. So it gets wines that are a little more on the red fruit side instead of the big cherry and blackberry, which Dry Creek and a little of the hotter regions have. So this is just a really nice, easy drinking standalone wine, but it also, you know, can pair well with pastas, and I mean, it could go with a burger fine. I mean, it's got some nice acid to go with.
Yeah, it's real bright. It tastes like it's, you know, it's alive. It's got those nice fruit flavors, lingering finish on it. I think it has some of those like earth tones, which is characteristic of Russian River Zinfandels.
Yeah, and I sort of get a lot of the raspberry fruits on it.
Does it make you?
In 09, so it's sort of, the vineyard is just kind of coming into its own. You know, it's lost its teenage years of, you know, being a kind of your unpredictable 12-year-old kid. So it's kind of just starting to hit its young adult age, and it's really starting to show nicely.
And this one retails for $38 a bottle. Let me ask you one of my perennial questions. Does it make you hungry when you drink it, or does it make you thirsty?
Oh,
that is a good question. I'm going with thirsty.
I'm with you, Chris. I find that some of these really fabulous California Zinfandels, somebody says, well, what do you want to eat? I'll be like, I'll have another glass.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, this is a nice standalone. You can have it before dinner. It's a nice sipping wine for before dinner.
Excellent. What's the alcohol content in this wine, the Matrix Winery Zinfandel?
Should have had that down on my. It is 15.5.
15.5. So take it easy, everybody.
Yeah. Well, for our Zins, that's kind of middle of the road.
Yeah,
I guess so. I guess that's right.
I would love to say that we could make all of our Zinfandels at 14.5 alcohol. And, you know, I sort of will make that analogy of, as you're out going through the vineyard and you're tasting the grapes, you know, they can be ripe and they can taste good, and it would be the same as if you're out picking a peach, if you've ever done that. You know, you can pick a peach and it's good and it's sweet, but then you can get that peach where you kind of have to lean over and it's running down your chin and it's just
Delicious.
the ultimate delicious peach flavor. That's what we like in Zinfandel, because it really is so fruit driven.
Yep.
And unfortunately, alcohol comes with the sugar. They go hand in hand.
All right,
Unfortunately.
so let's move on to wine number 2. This is St. Anne's Crossing. I'm going to put it up on my screen here. St. Anne's Crossing Winery, 2018 Zinfandel Bar None Vineyard, Sonoma Valley, AVA, $45 a bottle. Chris, this is one of yours. Tell us a little bit about its key characteristics and what's a great food for it.
So this is Nuns Canyon Road. So it's a moon mountain. It's a high elevation, probably 16 to 1,800 feet elevation. And what's nice about that is that it has the big swings in temperature, so it doesn't metabolize during the night. So you get ripe fruit with really nice acidity as well. And I tell me what you think. I think so Russian River Zins and Sonoma Valley Zins, I think they have a lot of similarities. They tend to be that forest floor kind of earthy tones with the more the raspberries and stuff like that. So yeah, and to me, you could pair this with any kind of like lasagna, any kind of steak, or it's really versatile. We've actually paired it with, we did a lobster cook, and Zin actually goes with that as well.
I think Zin is one of the most versatile wines there is, and we should mention that the reason that we are with you today is because of ZAP, which is Zinfandel Advocates and Producers, and ZAP normally does its New York event coming up pretty soon in early June. So this is sort of a nice opportunity to be with you now, since none of us are in New York now. Yeah. But I know you've dealt with Becky and Zap before.
We love Becky and we love Zap. And I won't bore everybody with the story again, but my introduction, my hook into the wine world 15 plus years ago was that somebody gave me a great bottle of California Red Zin, and I had no idea about it, and I didn't know much about wine. I was so blown away by it that I ended up learning a little bit more and becoming fascinated with the whole world of wine. But the wine that got me into the wine world was Zinfandel.
Yeah, I think this is my opinion. Zinfandel was brought over here into California. I look at it as it's really a true California varietal. And personally, I think Dry Creek Valley's, this area is really the capital. Sonoma County can be the capital of Zinfandel. I mean, you have other wonderful growing regions, Sierra Foothills, Lodi, but I just think with the diversity that we have here, you have so many different styles, and it's really fun to explore.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And not Zinfandel is the most versatile wine I have. It can handle holding up to a big heavy steak, to a lamb chop, to then I've had it with salmon before. Yeah. And it, to me, it's really one of the most versatile wines there is. It's my favorite varietal.
And it's
what I make the most of.
Yeah.
It's little known. It's little known on the East Coast. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, Californians, West Coasters know about it for sure, but it's something that will grow as people more and more discover it. But it's a great wine. So number 3 Zinfandel today is Wilson Winery, 2017 Zinfandel Tory Dry Creek.
Okay, sorry, we're going to dump our glasses here.
This one is a $42 bottle retail. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Wilson Winery Tory Dry Creek.
Sorry,
bottle.
had a little mishap with the bottle there.
Uh-oh. Don't.
Nope, we're all okay.
Leave the gun, take the cannoli.
Yeah. So Tory Vineyard, we have, at Wilson, when we first started, since we were using all of our own estate vineyards, we started naming the vineyards after family members. So there's a ridge there. So we first started naming them after our 3 children. I have my husband and I, Ken, who is really the vision behind getting us into the wine business. We have Sydney, our oldest, so we have a Sydney vineyard, and then we have our second daughter is Tory, Victoria, so we have a Tory vineyard, and then we have our son, we have a Sawyer vineyard, and we have since named from my parents to grandparents to, we even have one named after my old border collie, Molly, so when we ran out of family members. So the Tory Vineyard is probably one of Sonoma County's highest elevations in vineyards. It's up at about 2,400 feet elevation. And it is, it can get some snow up there. The grapes struggle. They're growing on a pretty steep hillside, and they're usually our last grape to pick, but they have just this huge depth of character, and from, you know, lots of mouthfeel to lots of just bright fruit. It's I think my favorite vineyard of our estate vineyards.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there. When you're up there, you can almost see the coast. So it's just, you know, it's hard, although it's hard growing up there, it's really rewarding when they come to the winery.
Yes, it's a long trip in. We usually get them late in the day. It's staying up late at night crushing these grapes.
And it's in the Dry Creek Valley part of Sonoma County, right?
Yes, in fact, if you look at the Appalachian map, Ken worked with the county of Sonoma, and it makes a little jog out, and that includes it's the Smith Orchard, there was an old orchard out there. It includes Smith Orchard Vineyard and so it makes it, you can see a little jog on the Appalachian to include it in.
So how does this wine taste, this wine that's made from grapes that have to literally struggle to survive?
Oh, it's a big fruit driven. It's but along with some nice tannins and mouthfeel. So you go in with a nice burst of sort of raspberry, blackberry, and then you finish with some really nice lingering tannins.
There's some really nice oak qualities to it. So it finishes with that nice like lingering vanillas, and it's just a lovely wine. It's that's one that'll make you thirsty.
Yes, that's definitely a thirsty wine.
That's one that'll make it thirsty. I like that. Excellent. And so
this wine I found goes well with a little bit of it can handle some spice. It's got a little bit of that jamminess, so some like a spicy Italian dish,
like
a penne arrabbiata or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, spicy lasagna.
Yeah, like I said, with all these, they're really versatile.
How does it go with wood-fired pizza?
Ooh, pretty good, I would think.
We'll have to try that.
Yeah. Do you have a wood-burning pizza?
I don't, but I have friends who do, and I'm a big wood-fired pizza fan. So I just had a suspicion that with those tasting notes, it could go great.
I bet it. I love pizza's one of my favorite foods.
Yep, our neighbor actually just got a pizza oven, and we were using it all weekend. And it went with, well, we were drinking beer because it was very hot, but it would go with any wine as well.
Chris, which oven was it? Is it one of those ones that has like the wood chips or the gas feed or what?
No, you use firewood. So It's got the big dome. You make a big fire in the back, let the whole thing warm up, and then you sling pizzas.
Wow.
Yeah, we've got a well-known pizza oven maker here in town called Munani. And it is, once you get it, it's got so much stone in it that once you get it hot, I think it gets up to 700 or 800 degrees, and then it holds its heat for several hours. And you know, you can cook roasts and you can cook anything in them.
What's fun about it, even when they cool, you can put like beans in there or like bread, and it'll cook it overnight. It'll still be warm to the touch in the morning, and your food could be ready.
Oh, and roast chicken is really good in a pizza, in the wood burning pizza oven.
I got to convince my mother-in-law to put one in here at the house.
There you go.
She's from Sweden. They don't really go for these pizza oven deals like we have in California.
Well, you know, when it's hot and humid, not turning on the oven in your house is a nice thing. You can use that as a
exactly. Awesome. All right. So and let's move on to the final wine, the Pezzi King Winery 2017 Zinfandel Rock Pile AVA or Rock Pile area. Let me put it up here on the screen. This retails for $60. And Chris, this is one that you make. What's the inspiration here? What are the details of the tasting notes? And what is the Last Supper, the ultimate combination of food with this?
So this area is one of my favorite areas. It used to be considered Dry Creek Valley, but like you said, Jack Florence created its own AVA as Rock Pile, and the reason is because if you do a lineup of Zinfandels, for me, it will probably use well. We can pull out the Rock Pile wines quite easily, just in their distinctness. They have it's almost like this cascading of flavors that just keep kind of rolling, and with that natural acidity. And this is a really high elevation. What is 2000?
I think so.
Yeah, 2000. You acquired this vineyard 4 years ago, 5 years?
I think 5.
5. So we've been working with this vineyard for about 5 years, and really now I think it takes maybe 2 or 3 years to really get to know a vineyard. And so now after 5, we're really getting to know the qualities and the flavors that are coming off this vineyard. Huge swings in temperature. So like I said earlier, the grape stops metabolizing, so you get all that natural acidity. Wines that come from Rock Pile are very ageable, as I like to say, and they just have this distinct flavor. Again, versatile as far as pairing. You can stand alone. We can't sell you a dish with a bottle of wine, so I like to make wine. If you're like me, I like a glass before dinner, with dinner, maybe after dinner. So this is a wine that can really carry you through that evening.
That's awesome. I love that.
Drink much here.
Now, I promised everybody that we were going to share this awesome opportunity to get these wines and to get free shipping. So hopefully you can see on my screen here, these are the 4 wines that we just did the virtual tasting of. And if I'm not mistaken, guys, there's a 35% discount on these wines as part of our tasting today. It's a case offer, so you get a mixed case. Diane, can they mix if they want 4 bottles of one and 2 of another and 3 and 3? Can they do that?
I don't think so. I think they have already made up, and I think
it's a set thing. So there's 3 of each.
3.
Okay, got it.
But if somebody loves something, I think we'll reorder. I'm sure that we'll honor the discounted price if they want to reorder.
Yeah.
Mix their own case afterwards.
And for those of you watching, the easiest thing to do is to go to wilsonartisanwines.com/New York, all spelled out, New York. And that'll take you straight to, it applies the promo code automatically. But for these wines, which are truly spectacular, I mean, you cannot emphasize enough how much Wilson Artisan Wines is a standout in Sonoma County and in the whole region. this is a tremendous deal. And then to get free shipping anywhere in the US that Wilson ships to, that's great too. So take advantage of it. Guys, I think this has been great to spend time with you, to get to know more about your different wineries. I've been talking to Jim, who works with you, and we've been saying, you know, let's get started with these 4, but let's do some more in the near future where we talk about some of the other, like Delormier and some of the other labels you have.
That would be great. We also have two small inns in downtown Healdsburg that are really lovely to stay at. So when people can finally start traveling again, which hopefully is sooner than later, I'm hoping things pick up. You know, we have a couple of lovely little spots to stay and be able to experience all this firsthand.
And most of the properties have guest houses on them as well. So it's the B&Bs, guest houses. We have lodging. It's all over.
Yeah, there's a guest house here. This is actually where I live here. We're on the deck of my house, but we have a guest house here that we also do some renting of also.
Too bad about your view there, Diane.
Oh, it's just horrible, I know.
So I told Jim, I said, you know, pencil in some dates, and I'm going to come stay in one of the B&Bs, and then we're going to go trout fishing after we do some wine tasting, or vice versa.
Oh, it's great to have you come visit. We'd love to see you in person.
I would love to be seen in person.
Wouldn't we all?
Well, and we also have that Sprinter van that seats 12. And so we do tours to all of our sister wineries.
That's great. That's great. So you can actually do a day trip between your various brands and winery locations. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then you can arrange lunch, so you can get a lunch delivered to one of the wineries and have it out on the deck. And it makes a really nice, easy day because you're not trying to, you know, you're just escorted and it's all taken care of for you. So it's a nice, easy way to come experience the Healdsburg area.
Absolutely. Two quick questions that I wanted to just help people with. There are actually 3. So actually 4. When is the best time to visit the full fruit of the vines? We've always visited in April for Passport, but when's the best time to come to see the full fruit of the vines? What month?
Probably end of mid-September to mid-October, that month, toward the end of October. That's when the harvest is really in full swing, and you still see some fruit hanging, but you'll also see it being processed, and you can kind of get the full feel of harvest.
Excellent. And then here's another question. Aren't the St. Anne's Crossing Zinfandels known for their pairings with mushroom dishes? Yes or no?
Absolutely. I would think they would pair well, absolutely, with mushrooms. Mushrooms in it, and I think it says something about the Russian River Valley and Sonoma Valley, because I think those wines have that earthiness to them, and so the mushrooms really do pair and complement that.
Awesome. Myra asks, for someone who gets headaches with red wines, which ones are the best to drink from among these?
So I think there's a mystique around, you know, people getting headaches or with drinking red wine. And I think a lot of it has to do with the histamines, because there's proteins in red wine. Most people have issues with red wines as opposed to white, because there's more tannins, there's more those proteins in there that then actually change into histamines, and so they have a allergic reaction. And so I would start with maybe white wines, Sauv Blanc or Chardonnay, and then it's really the producer. These are all handmade. They're not mass produced, so a lot of craft and care is put into these. And so then you can start trying the reds and see how you feel with them.
I'm going to add to this for Myra's sake. I find that the wines from artisan winemakers and wineries where there are little, if any, additives or chemicals or anything. I mean, we're talking about it's just purely the wine, it's the grapes. I'm going to get less headaches from those than I am from mass-produced red wines.
I agree. I have a
Yeah.
friend who is bothered by histamines, and she just said that she has been able to drink we were drinking some Zins, and she said they have not been bothering her. So I think you're right on the more craft style wines versus the big, huge wine, where they never see oak, they're in a tank, everything has been added all the flavors have been added versus naturally fermenting oak, the aging process.
And that all comes down to, picking at the right time, getting the flavors to come out. So back to the alcohol levels, you can't pick for an alcohol level, we pick for flavors.
Yeah.
And I think that really shows.
I mean, just again, Myra, the fact of the matter is, some of these mass-produced wines, and I won't call them out by name, but some of them have animals like kangaroos on them and things. These are wines that are made in a factory. They're in my view, they're large chemistry projects with lots of additives and chemicals and all kinds of stuff. That's a very,
yes, they're not single vineyards. They're they've put together, they've just, picked grapes from all over that they've been able to buy and go into, and then they're blended into one big tank. And then, like you say, it's it's a chemistry lesson on making the wine.
Mm-hmm. And they're going by numbers. They're going, they're high sulfured wines because they might be microbially unstable. They're trying to fix things as opposed to showcase what it is. So I think that's a big difference in approach.
Well, I want to thank you guys both for being a part of Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country. It's great having you. We will hopefully see you soon, virtually, and then hopefully soon in person. Again, for anybody watching, go to wilsonartisanwines.com. That's wilsonartisanwines.com/New York, and New York is all spelled out. And that's where this amazing deal is for getting these wines sent straight to your door. Diane and Chris, thank you. We will see you again soon, and we're really looking forward to it. And take good care and stay safe out there.
Okay, thanks to you, Sam.
Thanks
for putting this together.
Likewise.
Cheers.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Talk soon. Take care.